Ocean's Buffet, and I'm here at Best Buy. I'm going to purchase a microphone so my voice doesn't sound like crap when I'm doing these poker hand analysis. So let me go over a few hands that happened in the casino since I couldn't record in there. I had pocket aces when this guy from Ultimate Texas Hold'em sits down and he tells us how he lost like 3 big bets at Ultimate Texas Hold'em, so he's a little bit on tilt. He has 8-5 suited under the gun, and he raises to $10 and comes around to me. I make it 40. Guy on my left thinks he has like a read on me, where when I when I 3-bet, I only have the nuts or really low suited connectors. He calls me with Jack 6 suited, and goes around to the initial raiser who calls, and the flop is 6-7-3. So it hits everybody. Hits the guy with open-ended. I don't need a hit because I have aces, and the guy on the left hits a 6. So everybody thinks they have the nuts. So first guy checks it to me. I want to shut all the action down, of course, so I bet 80. Guy on my left thinks about it for like a good minute. He's like, I know I have you beat, but there's another guy in the pot. You're lucky he's in the pot. I would have snap called you. I'm like, okay. He folds, and of course the other guy is like, well, I only bought in for 200 and I have like, what, 160 left, so let's just run it out, see what happens. He shoves the rest of his chips in there. I'm like, if you have 2 pair, you're good. He hits us straight on the river with a 9, so we lose that pot. And 1 orbit later, I get Queen 10, and I'm on tilt because I started that last hand with 400. I just lost a 200 profit that took me about 30 minutes to make. So I'm on tilt with Queen 10. And the guy who raised and won the pot with the straight, he raises again to like 15, and I got 2 callers in between me and him, so I'm like, let me just make it like a number that it's just gonna be me and him isolated. So I make it 70. Folds around to the guy who made it 10. He looks at me, he's like, well, if we're gonna do this thing, might as well do it for our whole stack. So he just shoves it all in there, and the other 2 guys fold, and I call. And I hope I have his range dominated, because the last time he put in a lot of money, he had 8-5. So I'm hoping he has like 8-9 or 7-8. So he actually flips over King 10 when I have Queen 10. And obviously I don't win that. He actually hits the king, not like he needed it. So he takes me for $400 in about 10 minutes. And I'm on super tilt now. But there's good news. This Omaha player, that's like the richest guy there, sits down in the big blind like an orbit later, and he puts, I rebuy for 200, of course, and because the table's already good with that one guy on there. When his Omaha comes, he puts $100 down. He puts the whole red chip stack in the big blind, like across the line, and I'm like, hey sir, so does that mean you're all in blind when it gets to you? And he's like, depends how loose the table is. I'm like, the table's pretty loose. And he's like, well, I might as well look at my cards because I could probably make money better that way. I'm like, that's lame. You probably weren't going to do that to begin with. So, of course I didn't say that out loud. He probably would have done that to begin with. So, he leaves the 5 in there, and then under the gun is the guy who just took 400 off of me. He raises it with Queen 10. I have 6-7 of diamonds. He raised it to, I think, $10, so I call the 10. And the guy on my left calls $10. And the Omaha player calls $10. And just a side note, before the Omaha player got here, I think I made another like 110 or 125 a hand in between when he got there, so my stack is a little over 300. So when we see the flop, it comes a Jack of diamonds, like an 8 of spades, and a 3 of diamonds. So I have a backdoor straight draw with a flush draw. Hopefully I'm the only person with a flush draw in this. The initial raiser checks it because he has a gut shot with his Queen 10. He needs a 9 for the Nutter Butters, and I check it. The guy on my left bets, I think he bets 30, and so the Omaha player folds. The guy with Queen 10 calls. I call. Turn comes in 9. So now the board's semi-dynamic. And he checks it, hoping the guy who just bet 30 on the flop will bet the turn. I check it, and the guy who just bet the flop looks at the board, almost bets it, and checks it like a smart guy. And I was going to go all in regardless if he bet it, because I have an open-ended straight draw and flush draw, and the other guy probably has less equity than what I have. I didn't think he had a straight, or else I would have definitely not thought about raising it. But anyhow, the king of diamonds comes on the river. So if you had the nut straight, you still have the nut straight. And the only thing it changes is that the flush gets there. And I'm the only one that looks like they can have the flush. I didn't bet it. I was the caller. So it leaves me the only person that can have the flush. But of course, I'm going to get action if I represent it, because I've been like a crazy maniac the whole time. The guy who had the straight and didn't bet the turn bet 70. I look at the guy on my left. I know he's not calling 70 because he didn't bet the turn, and the king doesn't change anything. So I'm like, let's just get our stacks in here. I bet whatever I have left, close to $300, and I get snap called, and he said flush is good. I'm like, wow. And I wonder what you have. So he flips over a straight, and he's like, yeah, if I bet the turn, would you have folded? I'm like, if you bet the turn, I would have shoved all in before you put your bet out. But thank you for checking the turn. I didn't think you had a straight. And I made all my money back, plus a good 300 and change. So I had a good day. See you later. Hey guys, so the clips you saw before I talked about what happened in Ocala Highlight, those clips were from a game I played afterwards. I ended up losing all my money I made that day. So yeah, I took a little break from making poker vlogs. Sorry about that. I play a lot better now. I watch a lot more videos, and I got off my tilt and trying to play more conservative, and people are staking me right now, and I'm trying to make them money, so I can't afford to lose right now. So I'm gonna go over 2 hands. One of my friends, his name is Rob, told me to share a standard hand that happened. So I picked a random hand from Hard Rock that happened, and nothing too crazy. And then I play this free tournament downtown in Gainesville, and I basically, after I won the hand, I asked everybody at the table to tell me what they had, so that we can see what their thought process was as I go over the hand. So that was pretty good. Thank you for you guys for sharing that. And so let me go over this Hard Rock hand. So this hand, I had King Jack, and I've been playing very loose, so I have a really bad image. The guy on my right is a decent player. I think he's probably a winning player, but I threw him off, and I got him on a little bit of tilt because I think I sucked out earlier. And he's down to 166 chips. So I look down at Jack King under the gun +1. I raise it up to 8. I get the caller from the dealer button and the villain to my right. Now we go to a flop. Now, this flop is obviously bad for the cards that I have. The only possibility is that I either hit a straight or a king, and hoping the other guy doesn't have king queen. So the action goes check, 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 which allows me to see a free card. And let's go to the turn. So the turn comes to Jack. Nobody represented the queen. And of course, if I'm in early position, if I had a queen, I'd check the flop and bet the turn. So when this good player, he leads out, I think, for over the pot size. No, he bets a little bit under the pot size. So he bets 22. Automatically, I know he has a queen. So a king or a jack, I think I can take his entire stack, just because of how loose I was. So let's see what happens. Dealer button folds, and river comes Ta-da! A jack of spades. So when the river comes a jack of spades, he shouldn't be betting here. I don't know why he leads out on a jack. Like, that's a really bad card for him. I called on the turn when he bet the turn, so I should have a jack. He should check call maybe half pot. The fact that he let himself to be exploited. Like I'm just gonna milk you for all your chips. That's a bad leak in your game, man. You don't bet like that. So anyways, I think he bets like 30. So I just take a random stack from my stack, and I bet it out. It happened to be exactly 130, so it's a $100 re-raise. So basically, I left him with $6 left on accident. I didn't mean to do that. So I bet that, and he thinks about it for a long while, and then I think I give some speech. I say something like, I was like, "Oh, you sandbagged the queen? You should have bet that on the flop, man. I would have never been in here." So obviously, I tell him I have a jack so that he can call, because I don't do the reverse psychology. I just tell you what I have and you call, because like there's no thinking involved with that. So I tell him what I have and he calls, and I win a nice $331 pot. So that's my standard hand. Now, to get over to my tournament hand. So this hand, of course, happened with my friends. It's free, so no money was involved. So just because it's free doesn't mean everybody calls every hand. People actually fold in free games. Now I'm going to give you some information about the players on the table before this hand happened. So this is the dealer button. My best friend here his name is Amir. He likes to, his ace highs are like pocket aces to him. And his low pocket pairs are like also like pocket aces. He just overvalues any pocket pair or any ace high, and like, but he hesitates to put all his money in with like king 10 or king jack suited. But like if it's an ace, like he knows he has at least a live card. So let's see how this action plays out. We can see everybody's hand because everybody told us what they have afterwards. I have 8-6. I didn't have any plans in this hand. I just kind of want to call along, and if the story makes sense, I was going to try to just like buy it because it's free and I can do whatever I want with free chips. So the dealer button, he's a really tight player. So when he raises, it's usually cards 10 and higher. And then my friend Amir re-raises to 15, so it goes from 5 to 15. So when my friend does that, I already narrow him down to ace high or small pocket pair. I don't think he would re-raise king queen there because it's a really bad position. He would probably want to see a flop, hit it really hard, and get everybody's money. So I already know he has an ace or a low pocket pair. So it gets called all the way around, of course, because we all have some outs. The flop comes king high. So right now I have bottom pair. And I bet the flop. So what I'm trying to say is I either have a king or a queen. By betting the flop, you get to see who calls you and who raises you. If someone raises you, you can get out because you know they have a king. If they just call you, I put them on a queen or a 6 or any kind of draw. So we just do a little feeler bet to see. Of course, I know I'm way behind, but I'm just trying to do like a feeler bet as if I had a king. When the guy on my left calls, he's also a tight player. When the guy on my left calls, it allows the person who had the second queen to fold because he thinks now one of us have a king. Actually, never mind, he calls, my bad. So, yeah, I guess he called that hand. And of course my friend floats with ace-8 high because he's a horrible player. The only reason he's floating is because it's me. Alright, here's where the queen folded. Okay. So, when I bet this turn, now I'm polarizing my range to only a king. On the flop, like assuming the guy that's in the dealer button has a queen in his hand, it lessens the chance of somebody else having a queen. But since 2 kings are out there and both of us are in the hand and we're calling each other's bets, he assumes that one of us has the king. So when I bet 160 and I get the first queen to fold, it puts the other guy on a bad decision, and my friend thinks I'm bluffing all the time. He was almost right, but this time I had a 6. I got the best hands to fold, and I'm the second best hand, and I got the worst hand to call because he was last to act, and he knows that I bluff a lot, and I just got max value, and everybody was like, what the hell? So I had to post this hand. Yeah. And that wraps it up.